Thanks for joining me today. I'm Katy Wallace. I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor, and today we're talking about nutrition to build muscle, a key to healthy aging. This talk is for health education reasons only and should not take the place of medical advice. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll have some time at the end for discussion. Okay, so today we're going to talk about why building muscle is important. Why should you care? What are the different benefits that you or your loved ones could get from focusing on building more muscle for your body? And then how do you eat to support that? I see a number of people in my practice, maybe who are already putting in the work, doing different exercises to build their muscles, but they're not seeing results. And so we'll talk about ways to fuel your body that result in helping to build the muscles and getting all the benefits of having more muscle. So muscle loss, involuntary muscle loss with age, is known by the term sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is when muscle loss is especially advanced, but basically all of us, most of us, experience involuntary loss of muscle mass as we get older. And this starts when we're in our 30s. The rate of muscle loss when we're in our 30s and 40s can be 3 to 8% every decade. And then once we reach the ages of 50 to 70, we can lose a whole third of our muscle mass if we don't actively strength train. So this relates to significant health losses unless you do something proactive. In severe cases, sarcopenia can lead to a loss of half of your muscle mass by the time you're 80 or 90 years old. And the effects of muscle loss can be extensive. So it affects our mobility. It increases our risk of falling or hurting ourselves or not being as independent, not being able to be out and about and do the things we want to do when we're talking about extreme cases. But also that gradual loss of muscle over time promotes inflammation in the body and promotes loss of blood sugar control, which of course, if you've tuned into some of my previous talks, I talk about how important blood sugar control is for our health and for preventing disease. So this involuntary loss of muscle that all of us experience unless we're proactive really plays a big role in making us more prone to disease and prone to dysfunction as we get older. The less muscle we have, the more we experience a drop in testosterone and estrogen levels as we get older. And that, of course, all of this predisposes us to chronic diseases. So one of the main benefits to building muscle is that it improves our metabolism. So by that, I mean it improves the rate at which you make energy. So it can improve how energetic you feel. It can affect how well you adapt to being out in the cold weather or being in the hot weather. It affects your hair growth. It affects how you heal, how your skin rejuvenates. It affects internally how you rejuvenate your lungs, your cardiovascular system, your digestive system. So it's basically very important fundamentally for health to have a higher metabolic rate in general. As we get older and older and we lose muscle, our metabolic rate gets slower and slower unless we're proactive about it. And so in general, if you're concerned about balancing your weight, it could be important to you because the more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to burn. And so if you're thinking about balancing your weight, you're going to have a lot more flexibility in what you can eat if you have more muscle too. So that's kind of a nice takeaway also. So everything I'm talking about is well supported by scientific studies. Here's an example of a UCLA study that showed that relative to your body size, having more muscle mass reduces your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And the reason for this is that the muscles are like the main cells or tissues in our body that use blood sugar. So they're responsible for burning 70 to 90%. And so if you're losing muscle, then you're not going to tolerate eating the same way that you ate when you were younger. And so the way to work against that is to build muscle. When you build muscle, you can handle blood sugar, you can eat more carbohydrates and handle that more healthfully than if you didn't have more muscle. So strength training also called resistance training, is a type of exercise that basically helps build muscle. So you can use your body weight, or you can use free weights or machines for weights or barbells. There's lots of different things, bands, many different ways, TRX, that you can do strength training or resistance training. But basically, it's helping you build muscle mass and improving your insulin sensitivity, which relates to blood sugar control and glucose transport. So here's a excerpt from Harvard Health Publishing showing how scientists are finding strength training helps ward off chronic disease. A review, this is a big review published in 2022, found that strength training reduced people's cause of premature death from all causes. So reduce the risk of death 10 to 17%. I think that's really impressive. So, just improving your health overall and reducing the chance that you're going to die just by building muscle. This is a neat study I found out of Duke, where they showed that just the muscles acting alone reduced inflammatory signals in the cell. So pretty cool what muscles do for us. Here's a more recent big review of how exercise reduces inflammation in the body. And one of the studies highlighted here found that overweight women who did strength training over a year significantly reduced one of the main markers you can use for inflammation in the body, called C-reactive protein. So this has been tested. You can get your blood work done. You can do strength training. You can get your blood work done after a period of doing that, and actually see and measure the reduction in inflammation and the health improvements. So basically, what the review found was that strength training reduced something called pro-inflammatory cytokines. And if you tuned into some of my other talks, I've talked more extensively about what cytokines are. But pro-inflammatory cytokines are basically chemicals that the immune system makes when it's aggravated. And in chronic disease or autoimmunity, or just a situation where there's kind of chronic inflammation or sense of unwellness, these cytokine chemicals get perpetuated and keep getting released in the body. And strength training works against that. So that's one of the ways that it's very powerful for improving our health. I got into strength training during the pandemic in 2020. I was doing a lot of cardio at the time. I was teaching cardio classes in addition to, raising a family and running my business. And I was really tired, and I couldn't figure out why. At a certain point, when I got really serious and was teaching cardio exercises, I was getting tired rather than rejuvenated from exercise. And that was sort of my entry into strength training, which I had done when I was younger, but then gotten away from in my adult years. And I began to understand that strength training was more suited to me. I'm in my mid to late 40s, and all the cardiovascular exercise I was doing was actually releasing a lot more stress hormones, cortisol, for me. And that was why I was starting to feel more tired the more I worked out, which was contrary to, what you might expect. You might expect the more exercise you do that you would feel better, but for me, I was feeling worse. So anyway, I got into strength training and immediately started feeling better. I stopped doing cardio, except for like my regular walking about an hour a day. And um, and then a really cool side benefit several months later was that I was actually able to expand my diet quite a bit. I had been on a ketogenic diet for a while, which had given me a lot of health benefits. But building muscle helped me be able to eat a lot more carbohydrates again and do that without having blood sugar problems. In fact, I would say my blood sugar markers are still really good and are comparable to what they were when I was on the ketogenic diet, just by doing the strength training. And then the other cool side effect was I was able to reintroduce some foods like dairy and eat it every day. And those were foods that had previously caused a lot of inflammation for me. And I won't bore you, but I think sometimes it helps to kind of hear a story related to the thing we're talking about. So that's why I'm sharing this. Some other cool benefits were I'm not cold when I go outside in the winter anymore, or even if I have to go outside and it's kind of cool and I don't have another layer, I can warm my body up without needing to wear a lot of layers. So I could really see how my metabolism improved. So those are just some examples of many of the benefits that strength training imparts. There are many cognitive benefits to strength training as well. Long-term studies have shown that strength training helps a part of the brain called the hippocampus. That's where we learn and memorize things. So basically, strength training protects nervous system and brain degeneration. And studies, strength training has found to treat cognitive failure, cognitive degeneration, like in Alzheimer's disease. And a study in Vancouver found that in older women, strength training improved executive cognitive processes like selective attention, conflict resolution, and problem solving. So basically, by keeping inflammation under control, by helping support healthy blood sugar balance and healthy metabolism, the brain is protected from the natural decline of aging. So this is a study just enforcing my point from the University of Sydney. Strength training protects the brain from degeneration. This was a 3-month study showing that strength training released a number of neurometabolites that correspond to exercise-induced preservation of brain health, as well as having a beneficial effect on muscle function for older adults. So we've talked about so far how strength training can help with metabolic health and controlling inflammation, help especially with cognitive health as we're aging. Strength training also is very important for mitochondrial health. The mitochondria, you might remember from high school biology class, are the little organelles inside the cell that make the energy. So they make our main source of energy, ATP, but they're much more important than that. The mitochondria are what protect us from cancer. They basically control the cell signaling when a cell is sick and it's time to die, or it's time to regenerate the cell. And so they're very, very important in protecting us from disease. And it turns out that strength training improves our mitochondria and is one of the most powerful way that you can improve the health of your mitochondria. I gave a whole talk in December about mitochondria. So if this is a new topic to you, you want to learn more about what's going on with mitochondria and all the different things you can do to support mitochondrial health and protect yourself from disease, please check it out. All of my webinars are on my website, humannaturellc.com, in the news tab. And this recording will be posted there afterwards as well. So the reason that strength training is so helpful for mitochondria is basically you can build more healthy cells by doing strength training. So as you're packing in the muscle by appropriately fueling your body with a good diet and doing the right exercises, you're increasing mitochondrial numbers. And that helps increase your health substantially. So there's a number of different studies that have been done on that. Basically, strength training improves your overall mass and number of mitochondria. And so you're able to respond to stress better. You're able to make more energy. You're able to remodel. So when there is a stress to your body of any kind, whether or not it's a toxin, it's emotional stress, it's disruption of your circadian rhythm, whatever, there's many different types of stress we endure, your body is able to respond and even improve the capacity and the rate at which the mitochondria make energy. This article was talking about how once the mitochondria are damaged, scientists believe that that's a precursor to a number of genetic mutations or poor genes. So basically, the mitochondria are really critical for protecting us from things we might inherit genetically that lead to disease. So if you can keep your mitochondria in abundance through strength training and other lifestyle things you can do, then you don't need to be as concerned about faulty genetic expression or these different traits you might inherit or things that might be induced by the environment. Here's another study showing how resistance training alters mitochondrial function in a beneficial way. It improves how the mitochondria regenerate themselves and function. So hopefully, so far, I've convinced you there's a lot of good reasons to think about building muscle because it improves your metabolism, it reduces inflammation, it improves your cognitive health, it improves digestive health. I gave my own situation as an example of that. Um, and it improves mitochondrial health. So, what should you do? Well, many of you tuning in are already familiar with strength training and have a routine, and that's great. If you aren't, there's many different ways that you can start doing strength training. Everybody's different, and so when you start an exercise program, you want it to be appropriate for you. There's many local gyms and local personal trainers available who are good resources to work one-on-one with you if you're prone to injuries or you have a history of an injury and you're concerned about how to move forward with strength training and adapt things for you. There's also the Madison Community Recreation. They have different affordable classes. They have classes available online. There's many free YouTube classes. One I have highlighted here is the Yes to Next. These are free, very accessible strength training classes. So check that out if that looks like that's of interest. And it's very easy to even start something at home. When you are strength training, you're only going to be successful in building muscle if you progressively work. So what that means is that over time, suited to you, you're going to lift more or you're going to hold that heavy thing for longer. If you just do the same thing or you just do random things, you're not going to get results. So it's very important to have a progressive plan, and that's where connecting with a professional or a professional program of some kind is going to be worthwhile. So let's say, okay, you already have a plan, you got someone to help you with strength training, or you have the resources yourself to get going on that. You know what to do. You're going to do it 3 to 4 days a week or whatever is appropriate for you, and then build up to doing it 3 to 4 days a week from there. Next, you want to make sure that you're fueling your body properly.